UFC fighters want money fights. Shocking. Bum, 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 bum. Breaking news, drum roll.
If I could process thoughts, I would have did the whole shock face. Like.
All right, well, Francis, first we have a slight duo beef against Dana White and the UFC once again. Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson. I'm not sure if you saw this. I think I have the tweet. It's Khabib Nurmagomedov's tweet. Hey, Tony Ferguson, if the UFC don't want to pay you, I'll pay you the extra $200,000 on your purse. Let's make this fight. Now, you have no excuse. Tony Ferguson said that he doesn't want Khabib's money. He wants it from the UFC. This is a fight that would be remarkable if they could actually make it happen. Ferguson's on a 9-fight win streak. I think Khabib's on an 8-fight win streak. Both these guys are animals inside the octagon.
Yep.
Animals. And it would display fireworks. However, Ferguson was telling the MMA Hour he doesn't want Khabib's money. He mentions that Tony Ferguson is underexposed. And Tony Ferguson has a fair point. So what I'm basically getting at here, Francis, is when they decide, this now extends all the way down to who fights on Fox Sports 1 and who fights on pay-per-views. Khabib's been on pay-per-views. Khabib was at Madison Square Garden. Big exposure. Pay-per-view. Millions of people watching. FS1, not millions of people watching. Not nearly as much exposure, hence why less people of the casual sort know Tony Ferguson. Same thing goes with Cody Garbrandt, who just beat Dominick Cruz, UFC Bantamweight champion. He wants to fight with Jose Aldo. Money. And if he can't get Jose Aldo, he wants to fight with Conor McGregor. Why?
Of course.
Money. Who does Khabib want to fight with? McGregor. Who does Tony Ferguson want to fight with? McGregor. All of these guys want to fight him for two reasons. Money, and they genuinely believe that they can beat him. Well, which is part of how you have, that's the only way. You can't go into a fight thinking, well, I want the payday, but I don't think I'm going to win.
There's one thing that Dana White needs to just do in this. Every single response is just like, pick a number, take a seat. Because every single person wants to fight Conor McGregor. And if you are the most diehard MMA fan, you need to listen up and listen carefully. It's the way it is. This guy has changed the sport, so everyone has him on their radar. Khabib wants to fight him. Is it the most exciting fight that is set forward in front of our eyes? We don't know yet, because it's going to be up to Conor McGregor. It's going to be on his terms. So, of course, every other fighter, they're all marketing themselves for McGregor, especially in this clip. You talked there about Garbrandt. Is that how you pronounce it?
Cody Garbrandt.
Garbrandt. If you watch that fight, look at his past fights. He has had instances where he has a little bit of fireworks in him. He's interesting to watch. Go on. He is an interesting fighter. He has something to him that attracts the audience. And what was everyone talking about in his fight? His little dance, his little mockery, these things. It's all to play into this monster that is the UFC with Conor McGregor at the top. It's people are looking to set themselves apart. How do I set myself apart from the pack? Because there's people that try to set themselves apart by being the best fighter, but you can go and take a look at Demetrius Johnson and see what his stock worth is in the UFC. He's a fantastic fighter, deserves so much recognition, but unfortunately he gets lost in the pack. Whereas if you're seeing new fighters that emerge that have a little bit of flair, a little bit of style, a little bit of mouth to them, the way that Khabib had a fantastic performance at Madison Square Garden, but no one was talking about the performance. What were they talking about? The fact that he had his wig on and was shouting at Dana White in the middle of his fight.
It was great.
Everyone's trying to be an entertainer to get that fight with Conor McGregor.
Which brings me back, and I'm happy you said entertainer, because it brings me back to Dominick Cruz, who Cody Garbrandt beat as an underdog for the UFC Bantamweight title at UFC 207. Dominick Cruz said it himself in his press conference. Go watch it on Facebook.com/TYT Sports. You can also find it on many other sites. But I was there, I put it up I was recording it from Facebook Live. I was actually floored so much by Dominick Cruz's words afterwards and how he handled defeat. But even as he said it, before that fight happened, the 4th-ranked pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Remember, the actual division rankings mean nothing. They mean nothing in so many ways, mostly because if they meant something, that means every #1 contender would be fighting the champion. Yeah. And that's not how Dana White runs the show. But the pound-for-pound rankings are different because you're trying to argue, literally, pound for pound, who's got the most impressive resume. Demetrius Johnson's #1 ranked in the world, for obvious reasons. Conor McGregor's #2. #4 was Dominick Cruz. He dropped a little bit. Cruz said it himself. I am an entertainer. I am here to entertain. And that's why Dominick Cruz, by the way, is the one who deserves, not TJ Dillashaw. I know what the fans are thinking, but Cruz deserves a rematch with Garbrandt for his belt because Cruz hadn't lost in 10 years. Garbrandt is now 12-0, I believe, or 11-0 on the scene. He had an amazing performance as the 5th-ranked contender and beat Dominick Cruz badly from rounds 3 through 5 and decisively took that belt, right? That doesn't mean you go and fight Conor McGregor, man. I get why you have to throw it out there. By the way, for what Garbrandt put on, the people loved it. He was doing push-ups mid-fight. He was doing a little bit of dip and dunk like Anderson Silva. But man, that's one championship fight you went against, and every fighter is different. And if you don't think Dominick Cruz will be prepared to fight you again, and I would think win, I know, but win and learn from his mistakes that he had against Garbrandt, don't think TJ Dillashaw can't come in there and beat you. You're not invincible. And I think Garbrandt is doing the right thing in promotion, and he can be the next big UFC star. But don't just go after Conor. Blaze your own path. Be as promotable as Conor, so then other fighters want to fight you.
Yeah. People want to fight Conor so that they think, in the same way, the similar situation happens with like a Holly Holm, Ronda Rousey, where they go and they cut the head off of the monster and suddenly they're the champ. Well, what happened to Holly? She was soon knocked right down.
That's a great point.
And I think that people, rather than, as you mentioned, Conor never beat someone so emphatic that he suddenly became that star. No, he had to put in the work and he worked his way up. He was telling everyone, ever since his very first fight, he was predicting where he was going to go. I mean, there's videos of him back in 2013 saying he was going to have a double belt champion.
Do you know who said the same thing? Cody Garbrandt 3 years ago said, by 2017, I will be a championship belt holder.
Well, good for him.
He did. And by the way, just made it. He actually had a full year. He said by 2017. So he had a full year to still get his belt. He did it a year in advance, I guess, or he made if there was a deadline in his own mind, it was 2 days. And that's phenomenal.
But the key is just, as you mentioned there, is like people, it's almost like they want to shortcut their way to the top, which I get.
Why?
Because a lot of people, because the way the UFC works is they might fear that if we work our way up the way Khabib has done and is a #1 competitor and is unbeaten, they don't get that fight. Someone like Alvarez gets to fight over.
I don't think they're looking at it exactly the right way. They all want to, of course, everybody wants to fight Conor, but I think Khabib and Tony Ferguson, I don't get why that fight wouldn't happen. Yeah. And Garbrandt versus Aldo, why wouldn't that fight happen? Yeah. Those are great fights to be made. And rematches, Dillashaw versus Garbrandt too, that's a fight that should be made as well. Lineker fighting Cruz, sure, it doesn't. What I find amazing is that the product for the UFC has never been better and it will only continue to get better. Stop just trying to fight Conor McGregor. Stop altogether. I understand why, but stop. Blaze your own path.
I think in the end, as much as we love to all see Conor on the octagon, I think it takes away from a lot of the remarkable fights you can see. We just seen Wonder Boy.
The guy can't fight 12 times a year. I wish.
Wonder Boy had a phenomenal fight at Madison Square Garden against Tyler Woodley. It was a draw. That is the perfect situation to put up Woodley, Wonder Boy 2. And what's the conversation still? But Woodley might want to fight Conor McGregor. They want to push McGregor up another weight, see if he can try and get 3 belts. Oh, please. Come on. And that's Woodley. He's feeding into that as well because he wants that. He doesn't believe he can get to the exposure. And I get it. But there are some great fights to be had outside of Conor.
There's a lot of great fights to be had.
Hit us in the comments.
Comment
what do you think? You got tissues because we are dying. We're going to bed. Not together.
Betty buys, literal Betty buys for Jason.
Ciao.
See you next week. See you tomorrow.